There is no movie that I've had more complicated feelings about than 2018's Mandy. This is a movie that went from a highly anticipated title to a massive disappointment to one of my all-time favorites, and I wasn't exactly sure when the shifts happened. So Mandy is a horror revenge thriller starring Nicolas Cage. Basic plot summary is that Nick Cage and his wife Mandy lives alone in the forest, happily married. And then a cult ran by the psychopathic narcissist Jeremiah decides to ruin their lives. She's kidnapped and murdered after refusing to be indoctrinated, and Nick Cage is left for dead, thus leading to a pretty standard revenge movie. On paper. Okay, to get it out of the way right now, Mandy is very much style over substance. The plot's simple and easy to follow. Bad guys do bad thing. Nick Cage goes into a rage and takes heads. But the main difference between this and something like The Equalizer is the style. Instead of being filmed like a typical action movie, Mandy tells the story almost like it was a dream or a drug hallucination. There are so many scenes that are shot in the most psychedelic way possible. It's really difficult to describe, but if you're familiar with stuff like David Lynch or Alejandro Jodorowsky and the more surrealist elements from their work, then this will feel pretty similar, only without the super in-depth subtext. This movie is pure, unapologetic style, almost to its detriment. The first time I watched this, the first half damn near pushed me to turn it off. It was too slow and it felt like wasted time to cover up how bare bones the plot actually was. But that is the key to Mandy. This is a movie that will only survive a first viewing by someone that is a film buff. Average Joe moviegoer picking out a party movie will be severely disappointed. This is not Wicker Man or any other crazy ass Nick Cage movies. You know, the ones that rely on him being goofy and over the top, and are typically laughably bad. And even if you think you liked it the first time, Mandy requires a second viewing before you can lock down your true opinion on it. The second viewing will feel significantly faster than the first, I promise. But once again, I have to emphasize that this is not a goofy, let's laugh at Nick Cage ride. Can you laugh at him? Sure. Dude is absolutely knuckin' futz in this.
Yeah, well...
Just tell me, man.
They lit her on fire!
But it's not something you go into with the expectation of the uncaged Cage, because really, he's not in it too much for the first half. Most of the focus is on Mandy and the cult, which definitely was the right call. While Nick Cage is absolutely amazing in this, the beats in the story simply would not have the same impact that they do if they focused on anyone but Mandy and Jeremiah. Seeing how the cult operates, what makes them do what they do, and building up Mandy as a character for when shit gets bad, gives this movie that hollow, dread-filled tone that it's shooting for. It would actually be pretty accurate to say that this movie perfectly replicates a Grimm's fairy tale. And that's probably the best way to sell it to people. It's a heavy metal fairy tale on LSD. A lot of the logic is very dreamlike and doesn't make too much sense. Why don't the police ever investigate the cult? Why are demon bikers running around and no law enforcement tries to stop them? How can Nick Cage fight so well when he was just some blue-collar logger dude? The answer to these questions is with another question. Why the fuck are you trying to apply logic to a movie that from the word go establishes that it does not care? It's like trying to apply logic to Little Red Riding Hood. Now to get into the movie itself, or more accurately the inspirations and what to expect going in, Mandy is the love child of movies like Hellraiser, Friday the 13th, and Death Wish, all with a black metal album melted over it like a caramel glaze. It embodies the horror genre and works as a great tribute to it, while also being a subversive take, with the fact that all the monsters and evil cultists are the ones being hunted instead of the other way around. In fact, if there was ever going to be a live-action Berserk movie, this would probably be the one to do it justice, because the emphasis of the movie is more so the descent into insanity and the loss of humanity over any kind of fight for survival like a typical slasher. So if you're tired of movies where it devolves into scared teenagers running around trying to get away from a dude that could very easily die from gunfire but all the characters act like devout pacifists, then this is it. Most of the horror comes from just how every scene is filled with a quiet tension where you know something bad is about to happen, but the movie takes its sweet time to show it to you. I am a sucker for horror movies that nail that atmosphere, and Mandy has it in spades. Like I said, the slow, dreamlike vibe helps give this movie a unique personality, and I just have not seen that since. But Mandy is not just a horror movie, it's also an action movie. And is the action good? Yes. it's fucking good. Nick Cage's absolutely psychotic performance matches perfectly. If any other actor tried to tackle the role of Red Miller, it would be laughable in comparison. The barely restrained rage is just eminent. He's able to also tackle the more vulnerable, emotional sides of the role. While it's not the most tear-jerking material, Cage is capable of making the most of every side to this character. And you can still laugh at his more goofy moments for sure, because the movie seems to understand how Cage is perceived by the audience. He's the kooky dude from all those maymays they like.
You're in my shirt! You're in my shirt!
But he's able to command every scene he's in and keep the spotlight firmly on himself. And when it comes time for the revenge to start, it goes from 0 to 90 real fast. All of the violence in this movie is satisfying and fucking grisly. Buckets of blood, satisfying gore, and sound design that makes every impact sound meaty. Gorehounds will probably love this movie, and it's definitely not for the squeamish. Each bad guy is so hateable that you want to see Nick Cage dispatch them in increasingly painful ways, which he does. The movie perfectly understands how sadistic horror movie fans can get, and it gives you exactly what you want to see. Now, Nick Cage's character doesn't have too much of an arc, at least in the way that a typical revenge movie would show it. Most revenge stories have that moment. You know the one I'm talking about, the moment where the protagonist realizes how much of a monster they're becoming, and they question whether or not they're any better than the bad guys they're killing. It typically has a side character coming in and saying something like, "Look at what you've become," or "How are you any better than they are?" Now, the movie instead decides to laugh in the face of this crap. Instead, it chooses to allow Nick Cage to be absolutely consumed. By the end of the movie, he is the exact same as the Demon Pikers. Oh yeah, those guys. I fucking love these dudes. Each one feels so monstrous and intimidating. I don't really like the lampshading that the story uses though, where they aren't actually demons, but guys that took super LSD and went batshit nuts. To me, having them be full-blown demons just works way better, since it makes Nick Cage seem way more badass and justifies the more blatant supernatural elements. It's a small detail though, and I completely ignore it whenever I rewatch the movie. But for fuck's sake, listen to the main biker dude's voice.
Still
If there is ever a good Berserk anime, get this dude to voice the Beast of Darkness. It would be absolutely perfect. This is the exact kind of guy you bring trick-or-treating on Halloween.
blood for blood.
Which, I must say, this really is a movie to watch on Halloween. The atmosphere, references to beloved horror franchises, the violence, it's all there. Would it be great for a Halloween party with friends? That's something I would say depends on your friends. The action in the second half is fucking excellent, but can you keep your group satisfied in the first? Because that will make or break it. You might have that one dumbass that will like the movie ironically and call it as so bad it's good, as though he has any idea what actually constitutes a bad movie. Fuck that guy, he's a cunt.
This is why Mom doesn't fucking love you!
But if you have a friend that are into surrealist movies, or multiple friends that are into those, definitely check it out, because some scenes are actually absolutely perfect material for jokes.
I'll blow you, man. I'll suck your fucking dick.
Fair warning though, the movie is definitely disturbing, so don't let the gallows humor trick you. Probably should have mentioned it earlier, but I thought it would be self-apparent from all the talk of violence and death. Not to spoil anything, though the movie is really simple, so there isn't much to spoil, but there's really not much of a happy ending. Still, it's a satisfying conclusion, and the movie is just too good to say the end ruins it, because it just plain doesn't. The film clearly has a lot of love and passion put into it, and with how everything is shot, colored, and lit, it could almost be a painting with every single scene. Even the carnage has a beauty to it. There's a reason why this movie wasn't exactly a big studio sort of deal, because they would have ruined it, dumbed it down, and just completely ripped out the soul. Now, too much detail and care was put in, and even though it was made for only about $6 million, the budget never once shows. Something that low managing to look this good, that's impressive. Now, I should address the elephant in the room, the absolutely stellar soundtrack by Johan Johansson, who passed away in February of 2018 before this movie's official release. This was a dude who knew how to make a good soundtrack. He worked with Denis Villeneuve on stuff like Prisoners and Sicario, and this was the last movie he was able to do the score for before his death. In fact, the movie tries to be a tribute to him in a lot of ways, and what a fucking tribute. Johann managed to perfectly marry a dark 80s atmospheric synth sound with black metal. If you like either, then you'll love the soundtrack to Mandy. Like the rest of the movie, it has a personality all on its own. So really, this is a movie that is just perfectly balanced. A balance between surrealism, ball-busting action, creeping horror, and fantastic cinematography. It is a cult film, literally and figuratively. Not everyone is going to leave satisfied, but the ones that do will worship this movie, because I'm one of them. But remember, you'll only really know how you feel on multiple watches. Even if you watch it once and think you absolutely adore it, please give it a second viewing just to be absolutely sure. Now, no matter how you tackle it, please give this movie a watch. It is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I sincerely hope you love it. Alright, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Unless you want Nick Cage to snort coke off broken glass and come for you in the night. Alright, see ya.